every year, the church that we were attending, so we attended a church we were a part of for 12 years before we relocated to a different area. And every year in January, they did like what they call a corporate fast. So it's a fast means you are taking something away and then replacing it with spending time with God, spending time praying, worshiping, reading the word, journaling, whatever that looks like for you, searching and just studying. It's the practice of like getting this daily abiding habit in play. Remain in me and I will remain in you. In James 15, it's one of the verses there. You can look it up. That whole book of James 15, or that whole chapter, is really good. Anyway, this year, my word I decided was abide, and I really wanted to focus. So sometimes in fasting, you can, if there's like something that you feel is out of whack in your life, something that's unbalanced, something that you really need God's dominion and authority over, and his love and healing and perspective, that's a thing you can focus on during your fast. And so this year I decided that I needed to focus on my health. I know that over and over again, like if you have a verse that comes up, maybe you're in a sermon and you're listening to the pastor preach, or you happen to read a devotional, or whatever it is, if something pops up over and over again, it's something that they want you to pay attention to, or something God wants you to pay attention to. And the whole, my body is a temple, had come up several times. And I know that I have not been very kind to my body. And a lot of it is not exactly my fault. In 2023, so I was a surrogate in 2022 and had a C-section in November 2022. And then Dominic had his first car wreck in December of 2022. And my dog, my beloved Delilah, died in 2022. I welcomed 2023 with my grandma dying. And then 2023 was just a really hard, difficult year. And then we ended that year with Dominic having been SHOT and going blind. And I left 2023 already feeling like brace for impact, frozen, ill, but it didn't compare until, until I entered 2024, and just the magnitude of all of the stress and trauma that we were dealing with. And my body really seized up, so much so that I have done a lot of medical testing, and the rheumatologist says, because it seemed like I might have an autoimmune disorder, and the rheumatologist is basically saying it's fibromyalgia. And I don't want to claim that illness on my body and on my life. But I can't excuse the fact that there are times when I am so tired, my body hurts, and I'm not well. I don't feel well. I feel ill. And I'm not that old. I shouldn't hurt as bad as I do. I haven't done a very strenuous life. My husband hurts because he was in the army and he was a mechanic, and just really a hard wear and tear on his body. Makes sense. I have not had that. So it doesn't make sense for me to hurt like this. Anyway, I really wanted to focus on my health and figure out what I can do to make myself feel better. Of course, I need to exercise every day. But my chiropractor recommended a book. This is the point of this whole video, and I'm sorry you've hung on for 4 minutes already just for me to get to the point. I hope that me sharing my personal story helps you in any way, so maybe it wasn't a waste of time. Anyway, she recommended a book called The Body Keeps the Score. It's by Dr. Van der Kolk, Kolk. I've been listening to it on Audible, and it's really interesting. And I wanted to share with you some things that I learned. So he talks about this experiment that's really awful. They experimented on poor dogs, and I'm not about that. But what they discovered is that the dogs that were abused, or the dogs that were punished in a way, went into this freeze mentality. When they were given the opportunity to be free and run away, they didn't. They stayed in their horrible environment. And then dogs who had never been abused but had witnessed other abuse of the dogs, when they were given the opportunity, they ran away, like freedom. So that also explains too why I have been like in this frozen state, like physically in my body. I've been in this frozen state and my body is seized up. And I need to really like work to loosen it. But what was interesting about that experiment that they did was they discovered that the dogs had high stress hormones in their bodies when they were abused and exposed to the trauma, but the cortisol levels were low. So I always thought, and he said too that people with PTSD have low cortisol levels, which is really interesting to me because I thought that my cortisol levels would be out the roof, that, you know, anybody who's experiencing any kind of trauma or stress would have high cortisol levels. Apparently not, because our bodies create that equilibrium. Our brain creates that equilibrium. So we get, you know, it's like when you have a scale and you put a 5-pound thing on it and you zero it out. Okay, well, it's now able to handle 5 pounds of weight at a zero level, right? So when we experience a lot of stress, the cortisol levels in our body sends out signals to all the stress hormones and says, hey, we're all safe here. Everything's good. It's all normal. And we begin to operate on that level of stress. We're zeroed out on this level of stress and our stress hormones, and our body thinks it's a normal thing. And so it's really difficult to experience anything like comfortable or a better environment or a better activity or whatever. Maybe a happy movie instead of a more traumatic movie, that kind of thing. And it's interesting because they went ahead and they went further with this idea and this study, and they discovered that people, when they are exposed, so they did this like the best example is like the Vietnam vets. They exposed them to watching like a really graphic war movie that would definitely trigger their PTSD for sure. And then they had them place their hands in this ice water bath or ice water bucket. And they wanted to see how long they could put it there. And they were able to keep it in there longer when they were watching the traumatic, like reenacting their trauma movie, than they did when they watched something happy and lovey. Because our bodies create analgesics, which is the painkiller. It creates that when we are exposed to the trauma that our bodies are familiar with. And so we could go into the hospital and get a shot of morphine, and it would be the same pain relief that we feel when we're watching something or re-experiencing the trauma. And so some people will get into that cycle of trauma. So if you have like a loved one or something that maybe just can't seem to get it together, like they're constantly maybe they're constantly going after the wrong guy or going back to the abusive relationship, or they are constantly, you know, seeking drugs in that lifestyle of addiction and upset and unrest. It's because that provides them relief of their pain, because when they are stopped doing those things, the pain is so much that they have to, it's a major compulsion. He said Freud calls it compulsion to repeat. So it's this major compulsion that they have to go out and they have to do those activities again in order to feel good, in order to get their pain level back down. It makes so much sense. But then it also occurred to me too, you know, like there's people in my life that I am not willing to give mercy or grace to because they have hurt me in a way. And while it's still not okay for them to have hurt me, they may be going through that trauma response also. That really hurts my heart. I don't know why I was led on this study today, but I feel like it was something I really needed to share with you all. If it's something that, you know, you find relevant and you find good, you can share it with others. Like it, save it, whatever. I hope it helps. I'm going to share more as I dig into this and figure out what's going on with my body and how trauma is responding and like processing through me physically. And I'll be happy to share if you're interested. Have a great day, y'all. Bye.